Exit the Matrix.
Hi everyone, my name is Irena. Welcome to my channel. The topic of conversation today is actually going to be channeling. Channeling itself has been some of the most, or has given me some of the most profound information and details, which for me are of such a high level of intellect, which are completely unbiased. I think that it would be very sad for anybody to skip out on it just because they maybe come from a belief system that doesn't really mess with anything that you can't physically see in this reality or is unexplainable by science. Anything paranormal, supernatural, these are just sciences that do sit outside of our current understanding of sciences. This is stuff that sits beyond that 1% of the electromagnetic spectrum that we do process. So before we get all judgy and judgmental on this type of thing, I want you to be honest with yourself. I want you to acknowledge that we're not exactly using and operating, to our highest potential or fullest capacity in relation to our brain and how much light it can process to reveal the truth of our reality in its truest form. So let's just all humble ourselves. I know there's a lot of skeptics and there's just a lot of people who come from belief systems and are completely unaware of it. And humans have this unfortunate habit of judging things like this and fearing them almost automatically and condemning them as evil. You can thank a lot of religions for that, for putting that fear-mongering into people, which I think is very, very sad. And if you really are a truth seeker, you're going to be delving into certain things which are going to be a little bit off-grid, not so mainstream. You're going to inevitably come across channeling. You're going to be researching into things like occultism, esoteric wisdoms, ancient history and what they sort of believed and their perspective on things and their philosophies. You're going to be getting into interdimensional reality, multi-dimensional reality, quantum realities. This is the shit you're just gonna have to get into, but it's exciting and it's extremely interesting. So just because it taps into the off-grid stuff, don't fear it. Whether you like it or not, you have been channeling every single day of your life since you're in your mother's womb. And that's a fact. You've just been doing it unconsciously. Channeling itself, I would best describe as the human body or vessel receiving information from something that is sitting beyond maybe that light spectrum, or it's our higher self, or it's something from our subconscious. So the human vessel and body acts as an antenna. And the Eastern philosophies really support this. They understand, example, yoga, spinal alignment, energy running through the body, the joints, the energy meridians. We've got chi, we've got prana, we've got Reiki, all as references to this. So everything alive is basically an antenna, and that's the truth. It's all electricity running through. It's the receiving of energy, and it's sort of just like this crystal. You are full of crystals. Your technology is full of crystals. So it acts as a transmitter. The only thing that differentiates it is what you are actually channeling and to what degree. And we will be getting in and discussing all of those things. If you do come from a religious background or a biblical sort of belief system background, that's fine, but I want you to ask yourself, what do you think prayer is? It's a form of channeling. There are different degrees of channeling. There's different ways to do it as well, but that is definitely a form of channeling. And if you want to reference the Bible, How do you think that was done? What do you think inspired of the God's word means? That was a form of channeling. For me, I don't question that reality is multidimensional. It, for me, is the thing that makes more sense than anything, and I really do support quantum fields of studies that support this as well. I do think that all dimensions run through each other, overlay, and then just work as like a musical scale. Everything is by like a different resonance. Energy, matter forms differently between the different dimensions. The quantum vacuum, I think there's information that gets stored and it doesn't disappear. I think that that's how timelines work. I think that's how past life regression work. That's how prophecies and those things can be told. I do think we can tap into these other timelines because they're all running through each other. So I want you to imagine all of these different dimensions of different resonances being like a musical scale, different keys, different octaves. You are not limited to just this one. And another good example I'm going to use is just imagine a radio station. So you're one channel, or you're tuned into one channel, and that is this current dimension in reality that you're accessing. That's this resonance of things, but there's many. I think psychics, I think mediums are a very good example of the antenna being able to tap into the other channel frequencies that exist, because I think that there are so many, just like how a radio system works. Okay, you can change the dial. If you do change the dial, it doesn't mean it's evil. Okay, don't limit yourself to processing information in such a sheltered sort of way of thinking. Let's stop doing that, because as soon as we stop doing that, we're going to be able to evolve more. Humanity, that is. Science likes to put that sort of thing in a box, woo-woo stuff, oh, the unexplained, oh, well, that's just not real, then I can't see it, it's not real. Channeling really supports multidimensional reality, mind you, and I will go into that as well. But a lot of sciences like to just put it in a box because it's not within this 1% of the electromagnetic light spectrum. They put it in a box, they close it, and they just sort of put it in a dark corner, and that's it. And if you delve into it, oh, well, then it's pseudoscience or you're crazy or anything. And I don't think that that's logical in itself. I think if you can prove against a theory, it's still sort of an open thing. So let's all humble ourselves right now and go, maybe there's a lot more that I don't know. Maybe I'm not resonating at my highest potential. Maybe I'm really not seeing full reality. Maybe some others can actually see more than I can, and maybe I can too, and maybe I can learn how to do that. What is the origin of channeling? I don't really believe on focusing on what the origin is, because again, it's something we've been doing our whole lives, and I really don't believe in the current accuracy of a lot of our history books. I think there's been a lot of mistranslated things and a lot of covered up things, and just a lot of information that we haven't accessed yet or found. I think that humans have been here for a very long time. Life has been on this planet for a very long time, a lot longer than what our books state. And if we do base it on the books that we do have currently, they all talk about forms of channeling, and like I referenced before, the Bible is a pretty strong example of that. And if you don't believe in the Bible, that's fine too. But why would they choose to reference something even if they were making it up? They chose to reference channeling. So in a way, it still sort of means that this is something that was being done back then, that was sort of understood to some point. So you do have to consider that. What is the purpose of channeling? Why do people do it? There's several different reasons why people do channeling, if they do it intentionally. And the biggest one is healing. There is so much healing that can be done because channeling really highlights how energy can communicate in a way when our conscious mind is not fully controlling everything. When we can sort of push that aside and let our subconscious and let that antenna open, I think other things can sort of come in, which are not necessarily evil. Again, it can be your higher self, and your higher self is you. It's just the highest resonating energetic aspect of yourself, because you remember all of the dimensions overlay, run through each other, so you can access this. The other thing about channeling is it gives great guidance if it is coming from your higher self. And if it is something else from on an interdimensional level, it can be really, really interesting. Again, a lot of the information that I have gotten from channeling is some of the most profound, unbiased information I've ever come across. So even though I know people would be skeptical, you know, at times thinking, well, it could be scripted, it's come from something in their subconscious, which could be true. It doesn't mean that it's not real, because it's coming from somewhere. I think one of the best examples I like to use is that if you read into it, you read different ones, you will see that people have channeled similar information. People who didn't know each other from different locations of the earth, existed during different times. They all channeled very, very similar information, if not the same information. And you can go searching, you can watch all the channeling videos and read all the books yourself. That's the only way you're going to have that proven to you. So it doesn't matter what I say to you. I want this to encourage you to go out and do your own research. Another example is languages. People can channel languages that they've never spoken before. They have never gone to any sort of academic training in relation to language. They've never visited those countries, but they can speak it fluently. And when they wake up, they have absolutely no comprehension of any of it. So I don't know where that information is coming from, because if it's not something that they haven't learnt within this reality, where is it being extracted from? And a lot of these things again support multidimensional reality, but also that we are part of something energetically, electrically. We're all part of something, and a lot of references call that the collective consciousness that we are in. So I think channeling can help us understand what consciousness is as well, and this can be largely associated with the brainwave states that we go into, so theta, alpha. People who were very intelligent, again, like Nikola Tesla, Einstein, Newton, a lot of these people understood these brainwave states, and they were sitting more in those brainwave states, so they were harnessing more information. Because when you're in a beta brainwave state, and I could go on and on about this, but this would have to be done in a separate topic because it's so big on its own, but when you're in a beta brainwave state, you're sort of sitting in this left side of the brain. You're sort of breaking down information from something you can understand and comprehend, and that can be limiting at times. So that's why I disagree with when the world says things like, oh, you know, the artists, you won't make any money, that's such a shame for you, you've got a talent, but it doesn't work within this monopoly system that we're in. I think that's so sad. And if you're an artist, I want to let you know right now, you're incredibly powerful from an interdimensional perspective. You have the ability to more easily channel at your demand whenever you want and bring it into this reality, not just through language. You can do it through your craft, your arts, your paintings, your singing, your music, your poetry. These things can be channeled. You can be used in a very beautiful, poetic way. You make this reality a lot more beautiful with this gift. You can extract information, and some artworks have some of the most profound, I mean, long-lasting, never expires type of messages that are extremely powerful on human emotion and human psyche. So do not underestimate yourself. And that's great if you're watching this video, because I hope this inspires you to understand this nature more and how you can harness this gift more. So for all the religious people right now coming from this belief system of it's evil, we live in a dualistic reality, okay, which is actually trying to heal itself out of it. But with that comes the nature of polarities. So there is a high resonance and there is a lower resonance. You could label the higher resonance as being good, if that makes it easier, and you could put the lower resonance as being bad or with not good intention or agenda, not serving a good purpose. You can use those two examples. Channeling is just a craft. A craft itself is not evil. It's what you use it for. Okay, you can use a really sharp knife. You could be amazing at cutting and carving and all of that. But you could also use a knife to stab somebody. Channeling is I don't know if that's the best example, but it was a really simple one. Okay, so that is sort of how, you know, it works in its simplicity. It's really just a craft. It can be used for good. It can be used for prayer. It can be used for connecting to your intuition and your higher self. And it can also be used for the opposite. So we need to be intelligent when we do experience channeling, or if we are looking into it. The more you connect with your own channeling and intuition, the more you're going to be able to decipher what is probably what. If it's of a lower resonance, your intuition probably will respond to it. If you feel incredibly sick all the time after it and your body is so unbelievably stripped, that might be a sign that it is coming from an energy source which might not have your best intentions. It might have its own best intentions. It'll give you the information you request, but it doesn't necessarily care how it affects you. So instead of having a fear-mongering perspective on this and educating people, it's more about discernment. It's also not about just fearing nothing. Yes, you don't want to fear any of those things. You are actually in control of your own energy, and you do say, you can, with your own intention, say what can interact with your energy and not. If we all became more aware of it, we would have less of these problems if we knew we had that power. A lot of these things interact because we give it permission, or we're just completely unconscious and unaware of those things because they don't teach us about it in school. They only teach you how to become valuable to the economy. Okay, that's the monopoly system that we exist in. A lot of ancient cultures taught us about connecting with our energy, understanding that we are energy, we resonate differently, we need to fine-tune ourselves like a musical, instrument would. We're around other frequencies. We absorb these types of things. It can greatly affect our health. That is a very sad part of our educational system, and it's a very sad part about the modern day world, because this could really transform people's lives and humanity itself. Also, the healthier you are, the more you take care of yourself, your energy flow. And this is something I've only recently, I've understood it, but not to the extent that I really should have, because I recently understood why Tai Chi, Qigong, why these things are so good and how incredibly powerful they are. It really teaches you how to circulate and control the energy that's going through you. Now, on a health level also, it can make you unwell, not necessarily because it is bad, but you do have to realize that you do need that fine-tuning. You need that fine-tuning regularly, even if you're channeling, because some channelers like me, it's very hard to switch off the channeling, even in dream state. but it can have profound effects on the physical body, because you are in a third dimension. So you're having maybe, if it's a higher resonating thing, it's a lot in this reality. You're not really resonating in the level that's always compatible with that. So it can be very specific in nature. And I will get into the law of one, where for me the law of one is probably one of the greatest examples of a book that really explains really high level channeling. And I will reference that down the bottom so you can remember. I remember when I got this book, I think I read it within a few weeks, because I was obsessed. I was reading every single day because I was like, wow, this is answering so many questions. This is really getting me to think on a macro level. These transmissions are so specific that they are done in a way where there is no bias attached. There is no bias, or it's so advanced that the human language it doesn't even have a transmission for it. So if you read the book, you will see examples of it going, does not have the vessel does not have the blah, blah, blah. Because our mathematics, our perception of color, sound, all of these types of things, there's higher dimensional aspects of this, and humans and our science, we haven't tapped into that yet. We're not harnessing that yet. So for me, that's very, very interesting. But it also speaks and has certain referencing terms, and again, different people will channel and they use the same terms for things, but they don't know anything about these terms prior. They really don't. There's some people who do channeling who don't even study any of this. They have no knowledge of anything at all. So where are they extracting the information from? If you're being skeptical, please prove it to me. Because if you can't say that this isn't real, or this is something that you don't understand, or it's something we still need to give time for our own evolution to evolve into understanding. Okay, if you don't do that, there's a lot of hypocrisy in your own mindset there, and in your own approach to research. Consistency, again, in scientific research is very, very important. So be consistent with this type of research. Monitor it, write it down. Where did you get this? Where did you get this information? And put it all together just for yourself, because you want to prove things a certain way to yourself. You don't want it to just come from me or from someone else. You want it to come from you going, I get it. I think I really have my own opinion on this, and these are my reasons why, so forth. I'm going to name another person who I think was particularly a huge pioneer when it came to past life regression, hypnosis, which is Dolores Cannon. Dolores Cannon's already passed away now, but she was such a pioneer in a way that there was the regular hypnosis states where people wanted to quit smoking. They were like, please get rid of these patterns that are stored within me, because that's how they do it. Remove these patterns, vibrational patterns, and they'll be cured. This is a deep state. So it's so much deeper, the conscious mind gone and subconscious coming forward. She was told not to delve into it because weird stuff happened. Again, the whole taboo, we don't understand it, so yeah, we just don't leave it in that box and put it in that dark corner. Like that's intelligent, like that ever really helped anyone. It's going to surface at some point in time again in your research, so you cannot just keep putting a lid on it. So her works are particularly interesting. I highly recommend reading into her work and her books. She also trained another woman right now who has my interest, who, man, I don't need to watch movies. I tap into this lady's YouTube channel and I just give me some popcorn, and that's a Saturday night for me watching these sessions, because they will go for like 1 to 2 hours, a person going into this deep hypnosis state, and the information coming out is incredible. It is incredible. So you're just gonna have to see it for yourself, and I will link her in this video as well. Her name is Alba Weinman. She studied under Dolores Cannon, but she then sort of transitioned into her own way, her own technique which is her own special thing, and she's amazing. She's just one of the best I've ever seen. The other person, I'll just show you an example. I'm going to quote another person who's passed away. Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet who went into a sleep state and information would be channeled through him. Very accurate, really known to access the prophecy, like future timeline prophecies. I personally think some of them may have been distorted now because of interference with timelines. That's a whole other thing. But this is a book on reincarnation right here. Maybe you want to take a note of that. There's so many books though, and he's really known to go into Atlantis as well. He was very good at curing people. He in the end got really sick because I think the amount of times he was going into the trance, I really think his physical body just couldn't handle it anymore. And again, with the whole how specific some of these things can get, I will reference the Law of One again. And the Law of One, when you read it, when this vessel, when this woman was going under this hypnosis, the alignment was so specific to this amount of degrees. The head must tilt, the spine must, and sometimes the transmission would end very quickly and go, the vessel is losing energy. This will have to be done on another day. There would be some times where it just would say no, can't do it, not aligned properly. It just can't come through. So that for me was very specific and very interesting. And how could she make that up? How could she know her exact degrees that were up? Like this, it's impossible. It is impossible unless it's some sort of higher aspect of herself or something that can access such detail in this reality from a macro perspective. So please read the book. You'll know what I'm talking about, and you'll go, oh my God, Irena, that's sort of life-changing. But it's very heavy, so you will have to read over paragraphs maybe a few times sometimes, because it's just that advanced in its intellect and way of communicating. So how do we know if it is genuine? I'll touch on that again. I really believe in touching on your intuition, but also researching what things you can channel. The more you sort of research in relation to other people's channelings and books, the better idea you'll have. You'll have an idea of what am I channeling? What is this? Again, if you're in a hypnosis state with a professional, that's a little bit different. It's all recorded. Make sure you go to someone who's experienced and that you feel good with, because that is a very vulnerable situation to be put in. If you put in the hands with, you know, the wrong person, you know, I would hate for anyone to have bad experience, you know, for those reasons. Okay, interdimensional beings. What am I channeling? What are the Arcturians? What are the Palladians? What are all of these different names being referenced? Well, we can base some popular ones like the Arcturians and Palladians. These are interdimensional beings which are higher in metaphysical terms, at a higher density, much more further along in their evolution, and can access consciously more dimensions that we can, and many say that they're really us in the future. So these are different beings. Obviously Arcturus, Pallades, these are star constellation systems. That might sound really weird. Okay, so it's coming from a different star constellation. Well, if we look at a lot of the ancient megalithic structures, monolithic structures all around the world, and their specific points and their specific alignments to certain star constellations, I think that that is a very good indicator that something sort of connecting the dots here. Maybe there is something in these other star constellations. I think a good one to use is Egypt and the Sirius constellation, and how on a mathematical level a lot of these equations calculate and point to this certain star system and blah blah blah. So that's another aspect to research into. In my honest opinion, I really do think a lot of channeling has been infiltrated. I wouldn't just trust anybody who is channeling. I would see how you feel during the channeling and how you feel after the channeling. If you feel very, very drained of the energy, maybe take note of that, and monitor it. The best channeling you can ever do is really from your higher self, because your higher self at all times has your best intentions. People go, oh, it's the Palladians, it's their good. Well, actually, when you read into it, there's good and there's not good. There's some that are benevolent in nature, and then there's some that aren't at all. So we need to be wary of this. So I basically really just wanted to give you guys a general introduction, something that could help you along your way. Each topic that I went into, each subtopic, is a whole video on itself, a whole blog on itself. So I'm sorry if I didn't delve into things to the extent that some people like. You can leave questions down the bottom below there, and I'll try my best to respond back to you, or go onto my Instagram. I'm very, very interactive on my my Instagram. So all in all, for me, my summary is: channeling is a portion of your research which you cannot ignore. The more you ignore it, the more it's just going to resurface down the track. Keep an open mind, but have discernment. It's not about what you're channeling so much and how advanced it is. It's about really knowing that you can channel your higher self at all times. You are incredibly powerful. Do not underestimate what your higher self can give you. And if you don't believe any of this, at the end of the day, you're going to come across multidimensional reality and trying to understand it. And this is something that might help you come to that conclusion. If you're a religious person, just again coming from that perspective of it's just evil, it's demons, and they're playing tricks on all of us. What's a demon? How do you know? Because there's angels that channel to people that are benevolent. How do you really know? Why is it evil? Is it because you've been taught that that's where that's coming from? You don't know where it's coming from. If you choose to fear that, that's your own perception of something. If we're going to be doing this every day, let's try and understand what it is before we judge it, before we put labels on it. Let's understand it to our best of ability.